Angel. I sat at my vanity mirror watching a makeup tutorial on YouTube. I didn't understand the language, it was Japanese or something, but the girl had managed to make herself look just like Taylor Swift. It was silly, I knew that, but what was the harm in having a little fun? I mean, really, who wouldn't want the ability to look however they want, to become whoever they want? It was like a superpower. I tried to focus on the video, even as the sadness started to well up inside again. Even as my eyes started to moisten, I directed all my attention at the screen. Just like the doctor told me, I tried to focus on the moment. There's no point in dwelling on the past. In the pit of my stomach, I felt the tiniest hint of guilt. He had gone back to work almost immediately, and here I was a year later, still struggling. He wouldn't say anything about it when he got home, that I'd sat here all day in my pajamas staring at this screen, not even bothering to shower. No, I knew what he'd do. He'd simply smile in that increasingly pained way, push down the frustration I was causing him, and act as if everything were all right. Today was supposed to be my first day back, but the thought of facing my class again, after all the students had made their cards, after we had celebrated the gender reveal of Emily, I just hadn't been able to find the strength to get out the door. Why couldn't they understand I wasn't ready to let go? And yet everyone else had moved on because they didn't make the choice. The doctors had told me I was in danger. They went over the scans and said Emily wouldn't have survived. The chances were minuscule. That's the word they used. Minuscule. But not zero, called the darkness. Only then did I realize how fast my heart was beating. I wiped the fresh tears from my eyes and tried to focus on the tutorial. I was trying to angle my mascara brush in just such a way to make my lashes really pop when everything boiled over. I grabbed my phone and threw it at the mirror, crying out helplessly as the glass shattered. At the same time, an explosion rocked the house, knocking me off my chair. "Jim," I shouted. Stupid, he wasn't here. Of course not, it was only one. I wouldn't have been here either if I'd just gone back to work like I'd planned. A cold fear washed over me. I was alone in this house with who knows what going on outside. I ran straight into our closet. He kept the .38 special in the safe at the back wall, and well, better safe than sorry. I clutched the gun tightly in my hands and peered out the windows. What was it? Nothing in the front. I started to sigh as the tension in my chest started to release, but then I saw from the opposite window a massive smoking crater in the backyard. Russell, the neighbor's dog, had managed to break off his chain and was at the crater's edge. He was barking his head off. Something at the bottom was making him go crazy. Not my problem, snarling dog, smoking crater. I wasn't a fool. I would stay here with my gun and wait it out in the safety of the bedroom. Thank you very much. But then I heard a cry. It was so distinct, just like a baby. But why would a baby be in a crater? Maybe I imagined it. I heard it again, even louder. Grumbling, I slowly opened the door. Why did I have to care? You know why, said the terrible voice. Even as a cold sweat started to pour down my forehead, I felt my legs shaking. I forced myself down the stairs and out the door. I kept telling myself to turn back, but the grief in my chest compelled me on, straight to the edge of the smoking pit. Russell was there. On seeing me, he calmed down and tilted his head. He gave a small whine and licked my hand. It was almost like he was saying, "It's your problem now, human." I've always been a cat person. The crater was smaller than I thought, only about 10 feet across, but still big enough that our HOA would be throwing a fit. Like they would believe a meteor did this. "Hey, anyone alive down there?" I called, carefully popping my head over the edge. I'm not sure what I thought I'd see, but a purple, furry mouse the size of a Michael Kors clutch, nestled in a sleek metal pod, was not one of them. I raised my gun, to shoot or not to shoot. My hands trembled and I started to sweat. The creature let out a cry. I jerked the gun back. It really did sound like a baby. For a split second, I thought about leaving it, but as I started to turn back, it cried even harder. I frowned, looking down at its pitiful form. A small trickle of blood started to stream down its forehead. A tightness took hold in my chest. Was it hurt? Did it need help? I looked around. No one was coming. I saw Russell, who looked at me and tilted his head to the other side. Well, you don't even have hands, I said. The cry erupted once more. Oh, all right, I'm coming. I approached carefully. Was it even safe to pick up? I reached out a shaking hand and saw its eyes grow wide, but it didn't cry. Instead, it made an oddly comforting purr. You're kind of cute, aren't you? I said. They must have understood me on some level, because two tiny hands latched onto the end of my finger. I tried to pull back, but it was surprisingly strong. Hey, you can't just grab. Let go, I blurted out. Surprisingly, it did let go. But what happened next was even stranger. Its furry hide split down the middle, starting at the head. It peeled away, revealing pink, slightly freckled skin and long, light brown hair. Now, not only did it sound like a baby, it looked like one too, like a real baby, only this baby had a pair of white wings that folded over its body. You, you look like some kind of angel, I whispered. A a angel, she repeated. The grief I had been pushing down came back in full force. I felt it choking the air from my lungs. The hair and skin had been one thing, but looking into those soft green eyes, I fell to my knees in front of her. I had imagined Emily would have looked something like this. If it weren't for you, said the darkness. In the distance from the end of the street, I heard the loud roar of an engine. Someone was coming. I took Angel into my arms and hurried back to the house. As I climbed up the stairs, Angel curled into me, and I had to stop. She was so innocent. Alien, entity, miracle, whatever she was here in my arms. She gazed up at me with large green eyes, and a content little smile formed on her round face. For the first time in a year, I felt my heart stir with a painful hope. Maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe I really had finally lost my mind. But as I cradled Angel in my arms, I didn't care. I went to the bedroom window and peered down through a slit in the blinds. In the corner of the house, I saw a group of 5 men. 4 wore simple black suits. The one in the front, the leader, I guessed, was dressed in a slate gray suit with a thin black tie. He had long gray hair and his skin was oddly pale, his eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. But it was his presence that was off. Something about the way his body contrasted with the environment around him. It was like he didn't belong to this time, a copy of a copy. I carefully placed Angel on the bed and slowly opened the blinds to get a better look. The men below quickly ran to the crater. The one in the gray suit watched as the other scanned everything with strange machines that looked something like metal detectors. I looked back at Angel. She was awake now and bigger. Now she looked like a toddler. She had grabbed a book off the bedside table, Jonathan Sparrow, and had it flipped open to the first page. It was one of my favorites. I was going to read it to Emily. I had gone back to Mom's and gotten it, brought it here just for her well, before it happened. No cry, squealed Angel from the bed. What did you say? I said, unable to believe it. Angel was speaking. She looked up at me and smiled while holding the book. Mommy's story, she squealed. No, I mean, I stumbled over my words, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm not your mommy. The child tilted its head and frowned. It pointed out the window. The gray man wants Angel, but he'll take all the stories away. My heart skipped a beat. I glanced at the window, and I was able to hear the muffled voices of the men below. Conduct a search. Search until it is found, a cold, monotone voice said. I scooped up Angel in a panic. My mind raced as I bolted down the stairs. What was I doing? Before I knew it, I was in the front yard. In front of me, there was a black, unbranded SUV, the doors wide open. A crash came from inside the house. They'd broken in. I jumped in the driver's seat. Wait, keys! I pushed the ignition button. Nothing. No! They would be here any second. Angel looked up at me and smiled. She still had the book clutched to her chest. Don't worry, Mommy, she said. Like this. She placed her hand on the dashboard and the vehicle roared to life. I started to take the wheel, but it moved on its own. We were nearly at the end of the street by the time I saw the small figures of the men standing in the lawn in the rearview mirror. Angel? I asked, doing my best to ignore the SUV as it drove down the highway by itself. Where are we going? Her little legs were swinging in the seat. She smiled and looked back from the book. I noticed she had started from the beginning again. She pointed at the dashboard, and I saw the fuel gauge was nearly on E. Mommy, funny, we're going to the gas station. The accelerator pushed itself down to the floor as Angel giggled with delight. I tried to say something, but my mind could barely handle the situation. The SUV expertly handled down the road, cutting the curves at an unnatural speed and ease. Angel's attention, meanwhile, was back on the book. She was immersed in it, reading as if in a trance. She furiously flipped through the pages, finishing the book in only a minute or so, only to start over from the beginning. She was on maybe her 10th time through when we pulled into the Wemco that hugged the ramp to the interstate. Was all this Angel? How had she known where to go? And how was she controlling the SUV for that matter? Angel, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes, Mommy, she said, eyes wildly scanning as she flipped through the pages. She was nearly finished with her 14th reading. I'm going to, start the gas, I said. Okay. I got out of the car in a daze. My legs felt wobbly and I couldn't stop my heart from pounding in my chest. I'd already stuck the nozzle into the tank and started pumping before my mind cleared enough to realize I had no way to pay. No wallet, not even a credit card. I walked around to the passenger side and opened the door. But the seat was empty. Angel was gone. I looked around frantically. Where? Of course. She was in the store talking to the clerk. You sound like you have a very good mommy, said the old store clerk. He was bald with large, bushy eyebrows that gushed white hair. And those are some mighty pretty wings. Are you dressed up today? Angel shook her head. I'm always Angel. Mommy is helping me. I blushed as I approached the counter. The man turned to me, his smile dimming just a bit. Only then did I realize how I must have looked. My hair was frazzled, my mascara smeared from my tears, walking in here in 3-day-old PJs. He could probably smell me. You the mother of this little angel? He said, looking more at her than me. I smiled and tried to look as normal as possible. Yeah, I'm just trying to get this ball of energy home. He chuckled and then punched a key on the register. So how much will it be? I am, well, fill it up. I mean, full tank, I guess. He narrowed his eyes. This ain't self-serve. You gotta give me a cash value. Mommy, said Angel, tugging on my dress. They're coming. I, look, I'm sorry. We're being chased. You have to help us. It's a daddy, ain't it? Said the man, raising an eyebrow and scratching his chin. I wanted to say no, it wasn't, in fact, the daddy, but I didn't think I could explain the situation even if I wanted to. Well, he said with an irritated sigh, just have a seat with the little one. I'll call the sheriff. I, well, I thought about running, but where? I felt a cold sweat break out on my brow, but then Angel grabbed my hand. It's okay, Mommy. I'll help. At the same time, I heard the familiar rumble of engines, screech of tires stopping outside. What in the world? Said the old man. He was looking out the window. The men in strange suits, the ones that were outside the house, were approaching. They were spread out in a line, walking in slow, methodical steps. What were they? I watched the old man as he went over to the counter. He retrieved a large double-barrel shotgun and went to the station door. Now, what do you think you're doing? He started to yell, but his voice was cut short. He fell to the floor, and only then did the gunshot register. Th they killed him. Oh, God. Angel rushed by me and grabbed the old man's pants. She started to cry, and I saw her wings flutter outward. Take it back, she screamed. Angel's hand turned bright blue, and then a strange surge of energy pulsed through the old man. He stood up, but in an awkward, disjointed way. For a moment, he turned in my direction, but he wasn't really looking at me. His eyes seemed dazed, lifeless. He looked at Angel, slack-jawed and unblinking. He gave a strange nod and shambled out the station door toward the men. Gunfire erupted from all of them. Bullets tore through his body, but the hollow zombie of a man shambled on. "Mommy, let's go!" Angel tugged on my dress. I struggled to take my eyes off the men in suits as they shot at the old man. How many bullets could he take? "Mommy? I'm sorry. Let's go, Angel." I took her by the hand, but my mind started to go blank. Suddenly, I couldn't feel or comprehend. It was like everything was in a tunnel. I saw the old man finally fall. Two of the men in suits held him down while the man in the gray suit walked over. I didn't wait for the final shot. I took Angel by the hand. We moved to the back of the store. We went past the employees only sign. It led us down a small dark hallway, and at the end of the hall was a door. I turned the handle. Locked. Panic flooded my body. We had to turn around. "Damn it," I whispered. I heard the front door of the shop jingle as the men went inside. "I'm sorry, Mommy. I tried to help him, but I didn't understand the story well enough," said Angel in nearly perfect English. "I Just stay behind me, baby," I said, my voice shaking. I peered back at her and couldn't believe that she'd plopped down on the floor and was reading the book again. The man in the gray suit appeared in the hallway. He approached, gun pointed at me, his eyes hidden behind the dark glasses, and behind him, the other men followed. From my purse, I pulled out Jim's .38. I clutched it tightly in my hands. "What do you want?" I screamed. "We know you have the metamorph. We will contain it. Give it to us, and we won't hurt you." His voice came out in slow, deliberate syllables, flat and cold, without a hint of emotion. "Mommy, I don't want to go. I'm almost finished," said Angel. I looked at her and smiled. She really did look exactly like Emily. I kneeled down and kissed her head, taking in the sweet smell of her soft hair. "I know, baby," I said. "Mommy is right here, and she will never leave you." I slowed my breathing, just as Jim had taught me. I stood up and turned to face the gray man, and raised the gun. "Drop the weapon," he said in the same monotone. As he said it, I felt a searing pain in my stomach. What? He already shot me. I didn't think. I took aim and pulled the trigger. I don't know how long the exchange lasted. I felt another bullet tear into my stomach, another on the right side of my chest. There was pain, but I didn't go down. I held the gun out and kept firing. When I finally regained my senses, the gun was empty. The gray man and the four men behind him lay still on the hallway floor. "I can't believe it," I said. "I did it." I smiled and collapsed to the floor. "Mommy?" Angel's tiny form was hunched by my side. I winced against the pain. I tried to take a breath, but it was difficult. It felt like breathing through a stack of thick blankets, and my chest made a terrible rattling sound. "You're hurt bad," said Angel. She was right. I couldn't move. Even the pain started to feel far away. Did, did you finish your book?" Angel held it up and showed me the last page, smiling proudly. "Yes, I had enough time. I didn't understand before. That's why it didn't work, but now I know." I pointed at the flap. "Ugh, what about in here?" I fought against the urge to sleep as Angel pulled back a secret flap, and out came a piece of paper. Her eyes went wide. "It's a picture," I said. "It's Mommy's picture." Angel's eyes lit up with wonder as I closed my eyes and felt the world slip away. Sheriff Jim Kresnick lived in Hallam for over 20 years, and he had never gotten a call like this. 6 bodies. What a mess, he muttered as he pulled up to the Wemco. He was immediately struck by the violence of the scene. Right outside the entrance, he saw the first body. Clarence. My God, what had they done to him? His body was riddled with at least 100 rounds. He shuddered. "Prepare yourself before you go in there, Sheriff," said Eddie, one of the junior deputies. "It's that bad, huh?" Jim said. Eddie shook his head. "Worse." The inside made even less sense. 5 more bodies, and they were dressed in what looked like government suits, but no names, no identification of any kind. They'd all been shot in the head, 5 rounds of 38 special, all perfectly placed. He walked down the hall trying to figure out who the shooter could have been, but as far as he could tell, they had all been facing the same direction. The shooter was probably still at large. Meryl, this is Sheriff Kresnik, Jim said into his radio. Put out an APB for a potential shooter on the run. Looks to be armed with a pistol and 38 special. Copy, said Merrill. Do you have a description? He sighed. Negative. I'll have to pull the security tapes, but this is time sensitive. Wilco. No description available at this time. He walked down the hall all the way to the back entrance where 2 other officers were searching the back parking lot. It didn't seem like anyone had come this way. He made his way back down the hall and stepped on an old piece of folded drawing paper. As the paramedics started to move Clarence's body, he opened it up. It didn't have any words, just a picture of 2 birds flying over a river. One was small, a baby perhaps, and the other much larger with a golden streak down its back. It looked like it was crying. The bottom was signed with only 2 initials, HC. He didn't know why, but it put him in mind of his wife. He sighed, dreading going home. She hadn't been the same since they'd come home from the hospital, still blamed herself even though there was really no other choice. But lately, he just didn't know what to say. Maybe there was nothing to say. Jim shook his head and gazed out the shop window. This world, what was it coming to? Just then he saw 2 birds sitting on the power line across from the shop. They stared at him almost thoughtfully. He'd never seen anything like them. The one on the right had a large golden streak, almost like the picture. He looked down at the paper just to make sure and didn't even notice as they swooped down into the open ambulance doors. Don't none of this make any sense, Jim snorted. He followed the ambulance as it made its way to Riverside Hospital. He'd have to see about Clarence's family there, not something he was looking forward to. Ahead of him, the ambulance suddenly slammed on the brakes. It skidded to a halt. Jim swerved his patrol car, just missing the back bumper. His heart raced as he instinctively grabbed for his gun. A second later, the doors of the ambulance burst open. Out of the back flew 3 strange birds. How the hell did they get in there? Shouted one of the paramedics. Jim ran up to check on the men, but he quickly forgot everything when he looked at the gurney. Hey, where's the body? Later that night, Jim Kresnik walked up the stairs and entered the bedroom, where he expected to find his wife, Haley. What a day. First, the worst shooting in the town's history, and then he had to come home to Public Works fixing a water main burst in his backyard. Well, that figured. Everything usually fell apart all at once. Hales, he said softly. No answer. He felt a tug of apprehension as he approached the bed. Hales, I'm sorry I'm late. It was a crazy day. He stopped short as he suddenly realized she wasn't there. Damn. Probably went to her mother's again. She had been doing that a lot since Emily. He sighed and sat down on the bed, pushing down the familiar pain in his chest. Was he doing the right thing with her? He honestly had no idea. He pulled out his phone and called her number. No answer. He called again. It went to voicemail. His finger hovered over the call button as he thought about calling her mother. He was just about to press it when a bird flew through the slightly cracked window. He jumped off the bed, his heart pounding in his chest. What the hell? The colorful creature landed on the desk only inches from him. It looked exactly like one of the strange birds that had flown from the ambulance. He half expected it to fly back out the window or at least freak out and start crashing around the room, but it didn't. It was calm, staring up at him with large, curious eyes. You aren't scared, are you? He said. He reached out a trembling hand and the bird actually leaned into his finger. It gave a grateful chirp as he smoothed its colorful feathers. He noticed it had 3 circular red marks, one on its upper breast near the wing and 2 on its stomach. Don't worry, he said. I'll make sure you get back to where you belong. Just then he saw 2 similar birds land on the windowsill outside. Don't you want to go back to your family? He asked. He went over to the window and let the bird hop off his finger. It sat next to the other two. None of them seemed the least bit afraid. Well, aren't you all a brave lot? He said. He went back to the bed and sat down, watching as the trio began to hop about in the window box. It wasn't long before he understood. They were building a nest. He could stop them, drive them away, or maybe he'd let them be. He could at least wait and ask Haley when she came back, he thought. It was then he noticed the bird who'd touched his finger standing on top of something he hadn't seen in a long time. It was a copy of Jonathan Sparrow. Why would Haley put it there? As he reached out to grab it, he noticed that the cover seemed to be glowing ever so slightly blue. His hand stopped and widened with surprise. All three of the birds were watching him, waiting to see what he'd do next. The end. Hi, this is JAE Cole. I'm the author of Tall Little Tales. I wasn't sure if I was going to do an intro or maybe I'll use this as an outro, but I figured why not. I just wanted to say to anyone out there who is listening to the podcast or watching the videos on YouTube or just those who've read my stories on Substack, I really appreciate it. A lot of people want to be published authors or great writers, but honestly, I just want to make a great story, and I really only want to be a storyteller. My goal here is to make that process as pure as possible. So if you enjoy these, if you're moved or entertained, let me know. Or if I wasted your time, maybe send me a direct message and tell me to please stop. Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for listening, and it's been a privilege to share these stories with you, and I hope you'll continue on the journey with me. So, see you in the next one.